that we need to put in place the environment to help this company to develop. And this is what we try to do, and this is our commitment to really maximize the growth and the emergence of new competencies, upskilling of Ugandan company, thanks to this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Total. I give the floor to Sino.
Okay, thank you. My name is Hu Weijie. You can call me Hu. Who am I? I'm Hu. Okay. I'm the Vice President of Sinnog Uganda Limited. I'm in charge of the drilling and completion, service engineering construction, business in Sinnog Uganda Limited. I'm very glad to attend today's conference and talk about the private sector. I think the private sector has a key role in oil and gas industry because most of the goods and services, construction works are carried out by the private sector, and also Sinnog Uganda Limited as a company. Most of the services we hire the private sectors to provide manage our camps and carry our civil works and give a logistic support in transporting the equipment and the area of expertise. And also Sinnog Uganda Limited to focus on our core business in oil and gas industry. Generally speaking, I think the private sector is a key role in the oil and gas industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hu. Thank you very much, Mr. Hu. As you say, who is who? I give the floor to Martin from ECOP, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name's Martin Tiffin. I'm the Managing Director of ECOP, which means I spend a lot of my time in an aeroplane between Uganda and Tanzania. So I think I'm Uganda Airways' best customer, an unintended consequence of the project. So I started working on all of this quite a few years back and was involved in both countries' host government agreements. And there was a lot of time spent discussing what's called local content in Tanzania and national content in Uganda. And in fact, Tanzania took some of the ideas from Uganda, including the so-called unbundling and also reserving some sectors for local companies and providers of goods and services. So those came into the Tanzanian HGA, a little bit inspired by the Ugandan one. But personally, I'm very pleased to be beyond the, let's call it the discussion and academic stage. The government is setting the framework, but the private sector is executing the project. And I've just filed to Ewura in Tanzania and to POU in Uganda my Q1 national content report for 2023. And in both countries, we have more than 50 companies, local companies engaged with us. Something around 6,000 people actively working on the projects. And our experience has been that when we work with these companies, there's a learning process on both sides, and the jobs we're doing just now are very transferable, the so-called oil and gas sector, but it's mainly civil works, house building, and things like that's going on at the moment. So these are, let's say, easily transferable skills and activities, but done in a way that, in some respects, to a higher standard or more demanding customer than sometimes they're used to. So I think it's been very productive, and I'm really pleased to see stuff happening on the ground now.
Thank you, Martin. Perhaps we should give a chance to Talo to give us your own experience and perspective in the region.
Oh, thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. So nice to see so many of you definitely COVID is at least partly behind us to have such a good gathering with so many of us. So my name is Madan Srinivasan. I'm the Managing Director for Tullow Kenya BV, which is the subset of Tullow PLC. And I'm very proud to say that I'm now on this project for now 9 years. So we started with one of the very first wells back in 2012. So it's a long way, long journey. But the good thing about a long journey is you learn a lot. You learn a lot of good things that you do, and you learn things that didn't go well. And one of the key things that we have learned, and particularly our experiences guided us, is how to be more of a responsible operator. And by that, what we mean is, you could have a lot of mandatory requirements by law, which every government will enforce and will lay the law on us. The question is, how do you take that and convert it into a very responsible plan that is built at the early execution stage? So the best way to think about it is, these things, particularly local content, does not happen by chance and can never be an afterthought. So these things have to be designed very early in your process. You got to invest time, you got to invest the role of your entrepreneurs, and you got to look for a way to access finance. And then you're able to get the final product, which is what is sustainable. And that is something that we're trying to do. And also the final learning from us is that you achieve all of that only through partnership. You accelerate the process through partnership. And the best way to think about it is government working in collaboration with the private sector, our EPC contractors, and thereon the social, the community, and the societal part, how you bring them all together in one cohesive way through a life cycle of all these gigantic projects that are listed. It takes time. And through that and through partnership, you genuinely can deliver a sustainable solution. So thank you, Chair, for that opportunity.
Thank you very much. Give each panelist a round of applause, please, so that they are energized to give you more information. Yes, can we hear from Paulo, Country Director for Yatra Africa, please?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Paolo Pascuzzi. I'm the Country Director for Yatra Africa, as the company that is working, private company working in the downstream, and leading the consortium of Albert Graben Refinery Energy Consortium. Closer. Albert Graben Energy Consortium, and in charge for the refinery project in Uganda. I think it's local content, more than an obligation, is an opportunity for the private sector to develop local project, to be efficient in the project. Opportunity because if the local content is done in the right way, is not increasing the cost, but is reducing the cost and provide efficiency, and also is a good way to integrate with the local community and with the local authority in the right way.
Thank you, Paulo. Let's listen to Kenneth Mutawonga. From your own perspective, are you happy so far?
Thank you. So as has been introduced, my name is Kenneth Mutawonga, Director for Exploration, Development and Production for TPDC. TPDC is the Tanzanian Petroleum Development Corporation. So if I look at the panel, I'm probably the only NOC here in the panel, so maybe I'll give a bit of a perspective from a government perspective in terms of local participation, but also private sector participation. Now, TPDC as an organization, I think is the same as the other NOCs that have preceded us in these discussions. Yes, we are a government-owned entity, but we participate in the market similar to the other companies that are in the panel here. When my PS gave the overview of the sector in Tanzania on Monday, he talked about the hundreds of kilometers of pipeline that we operate in Tanzania. He talked about the distribution network that we're establishing in many different parts of Tanzania, that we're acting as a market participant because we employ and use a lot of local services. So we have that side of it. So I echo all I've heard in terms of using local services and products as being the best way to do it in terms of the right thing to do, but also the right thing to do from a business perspective. But I think maybe the difference from what the other participants have spoken about in terms of the role of an NOC, in terms of incentivizing private sector to participate, is, and I think this was probably mentioned by the CEO of the National Oil Corporation of Kenya yesterday morning, and I think he termed the philosophy of the NOC as being the wealth distributor of a country as far as the sector is concerned. And I think our role as an NOC is to make sure that there's the right foundation in terms of skill set that enables the sectors to flourish. Whether it's in terms of making sure that we have the right capacity of the right number of students coming through our system, through the assets that we operate, to make sure that we have the right skill sets, so that when companies like Total and projects like ECOP happen in country, there is a base of skill set for you to sort of to choose from. And also for regulators or the Ministry of Energy, for example, for the expertise that they need for the sector, they're able to draw from us. So we play a dual role, both in terms of building foundational capacity, but also playing a role as a market participant. And I'll talk a bit more in terms of what we're doing in that space later on.
No, thank you, Kenneth. I think members of the panel have introduced themselves. They've given you their initial impression and the commitment in many ways to really seeing the private sector play a crucial role in delivering goods and services in the oil and gas sector. I can see this commitment. However, that doesn't mean that there are no challenges, as far as I can see. So if I could take you, Martin, with the ECOP, are you happy with the participation so far in terms of really getting the local participation play the part they should play, or you could be doing more? What do you say with it?
No, I think broadly we're very happy to be engaging with the local businesses and providers of goods and services. So I like to talk concretely, but I mean we're doing house building, civil works, and this sort of thing. We split these because they're large-scale projects for ECOP and also spread across quite a long geographical distance. So we split them into bundles or packages, and we have, therefore, like in Uganda, for example, we have 4 companies building houses for us. We have 200 houses to build, but each is around 50. And our experience has been good. We've had to adapt a little bit sometimes in terms of helping them with cash management, with paying invoices or upfront payments so that they have the cash flow they need in order to do the job that we ask them to do. Sometimes we maybe increase supervision a little bit at the beginning so that they see how we intend to work and what our expectations are. But I mean, the proof of the pudding is always in the eating, yeah? And I was with the minister 6 weeks ago. Actually, I've done it in both countries now, handing over houses to people, and they're built to a very high standard, and they'll be there for 50 years, and it's a great pleasure.
Good. Thank you very much. If I may turn to Philip, with Total Energies being a major player in our region, I think the audience is very keen to listen to you from your perspective. Yes, you are saying Total, of course, is committed to making sure private sector is fully involved and it's participating. But from your perspective, first, are you happy so far? Are citizens happy, if I may even reverse the question? From your perspective, could you be doing more, or what? You have the floor.
Thank you. I think we need to differentiate 2 categories of services. First, we have a category of what we call rig-fence services, where by law, I mean, these services have to be executed by local companies. And they are executed well. There is a learning curve, I mean, to understand all the stringent standard and regulation of the oil and gas sector, but all these companies have been able to adapt and deliver good services on the rig-fence services. But the objective, our objective, all of us, is to go far beyond that and to build real oil and gas champion service company that can really serve the interest of the region, which means in well services, in maintenance of equipment, in maintenance of tubulars. So there's a number of initiatives that we have been talking about, that we are pushing, but we need to find partners in order to make sure they materialize. And over time, we build really local champion and local capacities, not only in the rig fence services, but in the core of the oil and gas activity. And that's our challenge, all of us, and we are working hard on that, because for me, is a key factor of success on the long term, of establishing really local champions.
If I may follow that, you are very right that there is this learning phase from the point of view of the local people, because oil and gas as an industry is relatively new. So it is very clear that there is the learning curve. But the point I have is, what specific measures Total is doing to go out of their way to facilitate, to promote, to make sure that they are fully engaged?
First of all, we try to identify, interested partners, and that's the first step, to find local companies ready to invest, ready to form a joint venture with international company, to develop their activity, to learn. And we have a number of interesting results, either in terms of well service. We know that we'll have to operate all this, what we are building today. Today we are in the construction phase. And the construction phase will last a few years. But after, we need to operate this facility for the next 25 years. There is, of course, room for developing a lot of activity. So we have projects, and we have been working with Petroleum Authority of Uganda and with a lot of private sector players in order to identify really investors. And for us, we will push, we'll be there. We'll be there to help and support all this initiative. And we have our own objective to see the emergence of local really players and developing capacities. And I can give you clear example, in terms of maintenance, in terms of well service, in terms of tubulars repairs. That's the few concrete examples on which we are working now, as it will be followed by many others. And of course, they need these companies the support of the banking system. We already talked about that. We are building what we call Industry Enhancement Center, together with Zoramu Company, with Mr. Jimmy Mugewa, and to build an ecosystem that will support this company who want really to join, learn, and develop. So the commitment is there, and the willingness is there, and I'm sure we will progress. You will see a lot of progress in the months and years to come.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's very insightful. Perhaps we could listen to Madan from your perspective as Talo. Did you find a problem in getting relevant skills when you are starting then and now? And in terms of your experience, how fast has the region been able to cope in attracting the bright brains and manpower into this sector? You have the floor.
No, thank you. I'm sure it's a challenge for every one of us, particularly when you come into a non-oil and gas economy, like as it is in Kenya and Uganda, which is a developing one. We don't have an established business yet. So the talent pool is limited. Now, there are two ways of looking at it. We could look at the talent pool and say, since it's not there, we'll keep on bringing in expatriate resources. Or, as we always said before, the best way is to plan ahead. Think about it. So we are right now in the process of submitting a field development plan to the government of Kenya. And if you look at the very architecture and the structure of those documents, there is a very clear local content plan, which is all about skill development. So capacity building, whether it is knowledge build, whether it is building in capacity at an industrial level or bringing in working level people, all of that is skill that we now need to start. We should have started, or we have started 3 years ago on a basis of something that is going to happen in the next 2 years. So it is that kind of time frame. Our business and our expenditure that we do is remarkable, if you think about it. But to do and spend that kind of money, the planning we need to do, whether it is in terms of skill development, whether it is in terms of access to finance, and all of these things has to be planned and planned ahead. So if we just give you some examples of what we have done, probably from our point of view, which we think has gone well, we had a very, part of our reservoir testing, we had to do an early oil pilot scheme with the support of the government of Kenya. Now, even in that small project, it's only 2,000 barrels a day, which is neither here nor there. But however, it was very valuable for us on what it takes even to build that facility, and some of our contractors are here, in terms of taking local content, in terms of people who have no oil and gas experience, taking them outside of Kenya to an established center, getting them skills trained, and bringing them back and getting them to work in the facility. So by the time we finished it, we did not have a single expatriate in our facility. So it can be done, and it is done. Companies like Total, TPDC, and so many of us here, we do it over and over. The question is repeatability and the ability to sustain it over time. And that is very key.
That's really nice to hear. Give them a round of applause so that my next question can inspire more answers. If I may turn to who from Sinok. From your perspective and from your experience, if I may ask, because of the specialized nature of this industry, local people sometimes need to pattern, they need to tie up with some other international players so that they are relevant and they can live up to the expected standards in the oil and gas sector. What has been your experience in promoting those partnerships, in promoting that kind of collaboration to make sure that people in the region locally are really fully involved? You have the floor.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much. I think it's a very good question. Now, the East Africa region, I think, has a very well developed private sector, and also the oil industry is a fast growing industry. More and more oil and gas players into this area. Here, I think some suggestions from my perspective. Firstly, I think for the oil and gas players, collaborate with the local companies to share resources and knowledge and expertise. This will enable them to leverage the existing infrastructure, access to capital, and establish the relationship with the regulators and the communities in the region. And secondly, I think try to build a regional supply chain. I think supply chain is very important to support the projects. And also, I think this could involve sourcing materials and services from local suppliers and contractors. Also, I think which could create opportunities for local business to participate in the industry. And the last suggestion I want to mention is about to sharing the knowledge and the best practice. I think the oil and gas industry players should share their knowledge and the best practice with each others. Yeah, like Total Energy and also ECOP. We cooperate very closely. We shared a lot of experience from each other, and I think this could involve hosting workshops, conference, and training programs to promote the learning and the capacity building. Yes, that's all. I think that's my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Now, Mr. Ho, have you been happy with the quality and standards of local supplies so far or not?
Generally speaking, I think it is okay. Actually, we are facing some challenges. It's true. But as I mentioned, and also Philip mentioned as well, oil and gas industry is a new industry in Uganda. And most of the local suppliers, they don't have so many experience in the industry. So at the beginning phase, there's some challenges in terms of HSE management, in terms of how to comply with the regulations of the government, and so on. But I think from the beginning of last year, we have processed the project for more than 1 year, and until now, the quality of the local suppliers, even not only the equipment supplier, but also the services suppliers now provide very good services to CNOOC. And generally speaking, now I think all the challenges we are facing together, and to try to overcome all the challenges that we are facing in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think one thing, governments are setting up policies, regulations to regulate this sector. Maybe I could throw a question to Kenneth from a government perspective. There is always a problem of having access to money. The local people have a big problem. This question of money, apart from anything else, remains, I think, the biggest constraint. Now, there has been an effort to set up local content funds, local suppliers funds from different countries. But we are having mixed reactions from local people, because even if a fund is set up in law, like in the case of Uganda, it has not been funded yet. Maybe international oil companies may also want to put in a little bit in that fund. I am just provoking a discussion so that we can see how we can promote full involvement. What is your experience, and how do you think we should go about it, Kenneth?
Thank you, Chair. So I think yesterday we had one of the board chairs of downstream regulator EWURA, who spoke at length in terms of some of the efforts that EWURA is doing, in the government in general in Tanzania is doing in trying to support local companies to participate more. And he did mention one of the challenges exactly that, financing. I think in our experience, I guess from a TPDC perspective, in the activities that we undertake, where there is a lot of local participation, is mainly in the downstream activities where perhaps financing is not much of a challenge. Because if I look at, let's say, civil or mechanical works, 100% of what we do in the downstream business, where at the moment we have just over 41 kilometers of pipelines we've installed, and all of that that's being installed is being done by local companies. Can those local companies do large-scale, large-diameter pipe installations? We don't have those projects ongoing at the moment, so I can really comment on that. But financing is a challenge. But I think the difference, perhaps, for Tanzania, I don't know about the other countries, is there's a lot of synergies between much of the activities that's taking place at the moment in the oil and gas sector with other sectors. We have large-scale capital projects that are ongoing in country, whether that's the standard gauge railway line, the large-scale 2 gigawatts hydro plant construction that's going on, and other projects where you can see companies that would, and I'm sure some of these companies are already involved in ECOP as well, companies that are involved in those projects have built up scale through other projects that they can bring into the oil and gas sector. So I think the activity in the general economy in terms of capital projects in Tanzania specifically is helping the capacity of these companies to participate in the oil and gas sector at the scale that we're doing at the moment. I think as we move forward into the upcoming LNG project and the size of that particular project, perhaps there is something to be done in terms of capacitating local companies to really fully participate in that. But for the level of activity that we have in country at the moment, because of the ongoing activities in other capital projects, I think we're in a much better place compared to perhaps other places. But it is an ongoing challenge, as the board director from EURA explained yesterday, and something that the government is working on.
Thank you, Kenneth. Maybe, Madam, you may want to add a word on that perspective, on that aspect of how oil companies come in to push solving this financial constraint on part of local suppliers, local participation, and so on.
So the best way we could do this is an example. And the simple example we have is...
Close to the...
But is any better? Yeah. So one of the things we have done is we have a number of local suppliers through our drilling program. And the common theme we saw is the ability to access finance. Because opportunity is one thing, and transparently showing them what the opportunity is, assuming that that is done properly, the ability to access finance in a way that is sustainable. Now, funds are okay. I mean, government funds are fine. I know you asked the question whether we can throw money. That is not a sustainable solution, is my personal view. So where we now need to go here is partnership. There are a number of forums. Invest in Africa is one of them. There are forums, there are banks, there are private equity based centers. And what we did is simply asked and said, we will provide you the cash flow. Assuming we give you a business, the business generates a certain cash flow. Based on that cash flow, we work with the bank, the local bank, and we say that why don't you finance them? And the proceeds of that finance on a certain percentage basis is returned to the bank. And through it evolves a symbiotic relationship. And if you carry on that, the business grows. You know, none of the business, particularly small business, does not fail because of capital. It fails because of cash flow. And you ease the cash flow, working with the bank, create a revenue stream, and the business gets bigger, and stability comes, and they can take on bigger projects. And I think that is the way to do it, and that has been done elsewhere. We're not saying we're pioneers here. There is a platform
for people to prepare before we go to the stage at which we are. It took a long time before we got to financial FID. And so this has been helpful to some extent because people have prepared themselves. However, one of the players is saying, even having got a job, having got an opportunity to participate, that banks, maybe we should have had someone from the bank on this panel, is saying even after that, they are having problems with the banks. With all the support, what has been your experience in Taro? Is this true? Why do we let that happen? How can banks be a constraint at this point in time? Yes, it is Taro, please. Total Energies. Philip.
No, for sure. I mean, we have heard the same kind of story with local company having difficulty to access to financing. And I don't have the solution here. I mean, we should, yeah, as you said, we should have invited the banking sector. Just a point I would like to raise also for local companies interested really is to manage the pace of growth. Because when you grow too fast, you can really put the company at risk. And that's why we're also very careful to make sure we don't, we encourage company to grow, but to grow in a controlled manner, which will be a successful manner, building on some foundation that are established over time. We will be very careful to award a contract to a company which is 100 times their previous turnover. because it's too fast and the company probably will have difficulty to manage to finance this growth. So each company has to build also its own, I would say, growing plan and step by step, and decide what can be financed on the cash generated by the activity and what can be financed by external debt. And so it's also where we can really help to some companies to really to build this business plan, and that's why we need there is a lot of association, etc., that can help them to strengthen their business plan.
No, thanks a lot, Philip. If I may talk to Martin from the ECOP point of view, I know that we are talking about big financing. I'm not expecting the local banks, but if you are talking to them, that is a different story. Do you have any comment on financing?
Not particularly, but I mean it's a common need for all businesses to be able to access finance on a large or small scale. Yeah, so that's the reality. I agree with Philippe. That would have been, maybe we should have had a banker up here to inform us as well. But when we do award contracts, somehow they should help the company also attract the financing and the banking that it needs. So when a company has a contract from ECOP or Total Energies or Talo or Sinuk, that itself should be somehow a bankable contract, and we need the banking sector here to understand that we're a creditworthy supplier partner, and that is a bankable contract, and they should be prepared to help these companies with their finance.
Okay, thank you. If I might turn to Paolo.
So I think the point is more on what the project can guarantee eventually to the bank and the investor. So if we look at our model in the downstream for the construction of the refinery, the product pipeline and the storage terminal, we are basing our model entirely on the capital market in terms of private equity. And the framework that we have signed with the government of Uganda is based on creating a commercially valuable project that is guaranteeing an NPV and an IRR that is appealing for the investor to bring money. And when you have that in the project, of course you have to complete all the legal framework, you have to complete all the project development to understand if the project will go and will be bankable or not. But when it's bankable and there is the right IRR, I don't think there is any bank or any investor that can, decide I don't want to invest. In the world there are a lot of money and a lot of private equity that are willing to invest a good IRR, good NPV, and that is more where the attention has to be more, not on the, say, if the bank will finance or not. Is if we provide the right security in terms of project and the right value, of course the bank will come. The other point and the other aspect is also, and we had Dr. Ayuk at the beginning of the conference saying the decarbonization problem and the narrative that there is behind. We need also to be able to explain that not everything, even if you talk about refinery, not necessarily is creating impact on the environment. The new technology are providing environmental friendly project, and you can work in that situation, explain to the investor. The other point is also on if you look today how the product, refined product, for example, in our case, is used in Uganda. So this product is produced elsewhere and transported to the coast, then is all the way up to close region, transported all the way up to close region, and then distributed. Tomorrow, if you have the refinery here, you will produce here with the most advanced technology, and you will just distribute. So it's evident how in the supply chain you will reduce the emission. So we need to be able also as private sector to explain the context of the project and how the project can be beneficial, not only in terms of impact, but also in terms of local community and development.
Thank you, Paul. There is another aspect that perhaps we can also look at, to the extent that there has been a drive for green energy financing globally. Now, to what extent is this influencing decision makers of the financiers here to say, wait a minute, you better watch it lending even to the fossil oil and gas sector from that part? Have we had that problem with our local suppliers or not? What has been your experience in Total, for example?
But for sure, if we speak about international financing, I mean, it's becoming more and more difficult to have to access to financing for oil and gas projects. And the trend, we know the trend, and we know tomorrow it will be even more and more difficult. We have seen a number of European banks pulling completely out of the sector, and so it's a concern for the whole industry worldwide. But I think when we deal with really local company, I'm not sure they are targeting really anyway this kind of international financing. Is more, we're talking more about local financing. I would say African bank financing, and this is still there, and it should be supported and locally and in Africa, and so that's the challenge. But internationally, yes. There is an issue of it's more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult now and tomorrow than yesterday.
Yeah. Yes. No, thank you for Mr. Ho. Looking at this sector, what would you see as a big challenge from your perspective as Chinook, dealing with the local suppliers, local content promotion? What do you see as the biggest challenge?
Okay, talk about the biggest challenges we are facing. I think is a question, and also I think is the answer. How to improve the capacity of the local company and the local players. I think is our target, and also is our challenges. Just now, the question regarding the challenges we are facing in the past year operations. According to the regulations, because Uganda government have a very for PU and another sectors, have a very strict regulations regarding the local content issues. So that means we must, and also we try to make more and more local companies and players involved in the oil construction phase and also in the oil production phase as well. So now the trend is, basically speaking, now the capacity of the local companies, because of they don't have so many experience. So that's the challenges. We want to try to communicate with the local companies and to educate and try to help the local companies to build their capacities and to involve the more and more sections of the oil and the industry production, and that will decrease our cost and decrease our challenges we are facing. So I think that's my biggest concern from my personal perspective. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ho. If I may turn to you, Kenneth, from your perspective in Tanzania, are you happy with the local participation in the sector so far? What sort of challenges do you see facing fully involvement of locals in the sector?
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'll take it in two parts. So, are we happy? I think in parts of the sector, yes. So if I look at the sector I was talking about earlier in terms of the downstream operations, I think the level of activity there suits the size of the market. So we're seeing upwards of 95% of local participation, all the way to 100%, whether it's in civil, mechanical, supporting services, consulting services. Participation is very high. I think when you go up in terms of scale, I think that's where I see the challenge. And I think that's where a lot of private sector people, some of the examples that have been given here are here as well in Tanzania. And that's more to do with the level of scale of operations that we have in the oil and gas sector relative to the general economy. So if I speak to, example, people that do logistics, and they say, I would like to participate in the ECO project, they're saying, so today I have 200 trucks, and the only way I can get into ECO project is by purchasing another 400 trucks just to meet the minimum standard. Now, is that level of investment sustainable for a period of maybe 2-3 years of operations? Probably not. So the barrier to entry is quite high. So if you look at the barrier to entry and then you overlay that with the financing challenges, then that's quite a big problem for some of these companies. So the appetite to participate is there, but that barrier to entry is quite high. And I think some of the measures that colleagues from Total and ECOP have been talking about in terms of supporting the local suppliers, it's aptly spot on. But I think the other challenge that I see as well, which I hope our colleagues from the private sector are able to help us a bit more, is being a bit more proactive in providing information to the local participants for them to prepare in time. Because for the most part, most companies that operate most generally in the economy probably are very good at what they do, but don't really understand what role they can play in the oil and gas sector. By the time the opportunities come up, it's a bit too late for them to scale up or to compete with, let's say, external players. So timing is quite important. So I think a combination of timing, information, and support for scaling, I think that's where I see the challenge, but it's also the opportunity as the colleagues have been describing. So are we happy? I think for some of the operations that we conduct as TPDC, very. But I think for the upcoming opportunities that we see, particularly for the ECO project, but more importantly for the LNG project, I think that's where I see the issue of scaling at the right time being important, and the right support to make sure that businesses don't scale and then end up not being sustainable in the long term, I think, as the colleague from Total was talking about.
So, thank you. That was insightful, Kenneth. If I may turn to Martin, in terms of your experience, in terms of developing relevant skills and training as a focus, are you happy so far? And could we be doing more vis-a-vis what is in the field and vis-a-vis the future?
I'll answer slightly differently because ECOP, we came into existence just over a year ago. Now we have something like 100 Ugandans in our office in Kampala and something like 200 Tanzanians in our office in Tanzania. So these are nationals, but working in let's call it in an international environment. And a lot of those people today are working on land acquisition and learning on the job, being trained on the job to not just the laws and regulations of the two countries, but also the implementation in practice of the famous IFC performance standards. And actually in Tanzania now, the activity is picking up in other sectors. There's some mining projects kicking off and things like that. And some of our people have been moving out, or moving on, or being poached, or whatever the word is, to move on to other projects. And actually, I think that's a really good sign. We're creating an ecosystem that where we can bring people in. They can learn, let's call it, some international methodologies, and then they themselves find that opens the door for other opportunities. And so, I mean, I myself, I've worked for 2 multinationals all of my life. So we have to get also look beyond the sort of local content and national content to also that working as a national from whatever country you come from multinationals is also a very, I think, very important and enhancing experience. And I think we probably have some examples also on the panel.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Let me turn to Talo. Any comment on that?
So I wholeheartedly agree with Martin. I think it's very well put. I think if you're really looking at some of the challenges and what do we do better, transparency. How do you make sure that people understand what the scale of opportunity is, and to do that consistently and to reach out so that nobody misses out is a challenge on its own. As you say, there's only so much you can communicate, but that's never enough. And how you keep going that in a sustainable way. And then, if you go beyond that, I would strongly encourage not to just keep this very focused on oil companies or governments alone, because they will do their part anyway. But there are a number of programs. We encourage our suppliers to look at, we are a founder member of, let's say, Invest in Africa. They do a lot of service. What they do is they create that networking opportunity. And also, quite rightly, as you said, what does it take to scale up? And who needs it? And finally, to what Martin said, local content is super, super important. And for a minute, I'm not saying, we'll dilute it in any way. But to be sustainable, and as Total also said, projects have a small lifespan, but they are an intensive set of activity. And what do you do after that? So this is where the very essence of forums like this is to start looking at a regional play. Can you transfer your skill within the region? Can you make impact through the region? Because at the end of the day, the business has to succeed. Yes. And that is how the economy succeeds. So in it plays the game. Yes. And I think that is where I think we got a very set of great panelists here who said all the right things. The question is, can we keep doing it over and over and over and improve it? So thank you.
I think that's a very important aspect. Martin is saying, as we develop these skills that are specialized from the context of the region, there is an opportunity for cross-cutting and supporting each other. As we acquire these skills, we become beneficial as they arise in other places in the region. Now, let me turn to you, Hugh and Chinook. Hugh, you notice that in a case like Uganda, they ring-fenced some areas for local content. Do you think you needed that ring-fencing, or you would have given the same local content without that ring-fencing? Would you have done it or not? As Chinook.
You mean as CDOC for the local content?
I hope I'm not being provocative. I just want the discussion.
Okay. Firstly, I want to try to understand the key meaning of the question. So, meaning as CDOC, how we can considering about the local content or not, or some, what's the meaning of the question? I want to
maybe I will spare you and ask my friend Philip.
Okay.
What would you say about that?
Okay, thank you.
I would say that I support the concept, and I think it's a good concept, as long as it is well prepared. Meaning that when you ring-fence a service, you need to make sure you have efficient and capable local companies that can deliver this service at the required level. And if it's the case, I think it's really promoting and pushing all the players for maximizing local content. It's a good concept that I fully support. But it has to be very well prepared in advance, well implemented with a good market survey. But so far what I've seen here in Uganda, it is the case. And for all the ring fence type of activity, we had no issue to identify a local company able to deliver the service at the with the required standard. Very good.
That's really very heartening to listen to. Yes, now as we get closer to, I would want to give an opportunity to each one of you to feel energized and tell the audience, because as you know, all East Africans would like to see full involvement of our local people, because that's when they feel they are part and parcel of this exciting industry. They read about countries where countries are onlookers. You hear there is oil and gas, and you read about it in papers. No, we want people to say, that is what we are doing. And so I want you to give a parting message to the audience, the commitment and suggestions, and maybe that we can go home with. Maybe we can start from the other end, please, if we may.
Thank you, Chair. I guess from my perspective, 3 things. I think the first one is, I think a few of the panelists mentioned the fact that capacity in country is important as a starting point for them to be able to leverage from. As an NOC, as TPDC in Tanzania, but as our counterparts from the region as well, I'm sure they're doing. It's important we continue to play this role of leveraging our assets and our experience and linking that to be an extension of our education system, so that people that are coming out of the education system have had the right exposure to be able to participate in projects that Total, CNOOC, and others are doing in the region. So that's one thing that we're very keen on as TPDC, and we're very proud of in terms of the number of students that we take on, interns that we take on every year to do that. I think the second thing that we need to do, most of the NOCs in the region are participants in projects as investors. I think we need to use our participation in those projects to be able to drive the local content agenda as well from the inside. So as TPDC, we're participants in the Eco Project, we're participants in some of the other ventures in Tanzania as well. I think we need to drive those ventures a bit more to drive the local content piece in that. I think the third part is we need to continue collaborating. I think the point that you made, Chair, in terms of how we don't have enough experience in the region for each country to stand on its own. What can we do in terms of being able to use the skill sets that we have in Tanzania for the projects that happen in Uganda, projects that happen in Kenya and other places? You know, forums like these are important to see how we leverage that. So I think those are probably the 3 key takeaways for me in terms of this contribution.
Thank you.
So from my perspective, I think we heard about span and sustainability, and there is an initial phase of the project that will be very intensive, and a next stage that will be, let's say, less intensive. I think sustainability is not just in terms of cost of the project, but also in terms of cost of development of the right local context in terms of supplier. If we think of the refinery, is an asset that will last 40 years. So we can't think that we will manage this project in the entire life without developing the right level of local content. From the initial phase, up actually even before, from planning, because we are not yet in the execution, so we had time to plan and to think on the right local content, sharing maybe best practice also among private sectors from colleagues that are ahead on the project. We are able to we were able to think on a project on a development of the contest that will be important for the project itself. And if we think at the initial phase in terms of many things in the refinery can be done locally, in terms of civil work, in terms of logistics, in terms of construction, security, but also supplier on the balance of plants. So we need to invest, and we will invest in supplier to create the right context and to bring the supplier up to the level of qualification that will create also the right competitiveness locally. So to survive 40 years in that business, we need the local content at the right level. So, and this will be sustainable. Of course, we need to accept, and this is also talking with government and the framework, that not everything can be done locally. There is technology that will always come from outside. And what can be done locally, we need to avoid certain let's say, and apply some lesson learned for a young country in terms of oil and gas development that are coming from other regions and especially from African region. Applying this lesson learned will avoid what are the common errors like creating, for example, repair shop. These are fixed cost, high fixed cost business, so you need a volume to manage a shop in this sense. So investing in local content, creating this cathedral, desert cathedral, that doesn't make any sense. So the sustainability has to be also in this way, and the framework has to be dynamic in the sense that it's not static, it's decided now and will never change. It has to be also an interaction with government and authority to understand how the context and the local context is developing and adapt the framework to what is needed now and in the future. And of course, this development has to be done gradually, cannot be done all in one step at the starting of the project.
Thank you.
So, Chair, thank you. And when I get the opportunity, I might as well say it. Thank you for hosting the session, and thanks to all the panelists. I'll keep mine very, very brief. And what I'm going to say is absolute common sense, and so it's going to be very, very difficult to follow. The hardest part with all of these things is we know how to do it. The question is doing it in a very sustainable way. And that's proving to be the difficult part. Not to miss the trick. It's doing it over and over. And there is this mistake that is going around that we think we are walking this journey alone. We are not. There is local content, capacity building, all of these things are done and accelerated through partnership. And that means whether it is other international companies, learning from them, working with government, truly understanding local content, and responsibly delivering it. Now, nothing I've said here would be new to you, but why is it so hard? It simply comes down to what we've always talked about: plan, prepare, and execute, and be very consistent about it. This is not a mandate, some form of a mandatory requirement. It is now very clear, whether it is in financing, whether it is an ESG requirement, that E is followed by a big S and a big G. The S has a very significant part, the societal part, the social part, and ultimately the sustainable part, and the governance part. So today, if you want to attract finance, if you want to go and do big things, then it's not just anymore about how many barrels you have. That is super important, but it is also how you go about and do your local content, integrate that in a sustainable environmental way is going to make the differentiator. And that is where access to capital will be there, and also responsibility will be there. So I'll stop there, but I really genuinely thank all of you, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I was reminded that I said that the definition of what you want in a project is that tomorrow is different to today, because we're moving, we're building, we're moving. So what we spent the last year on is really the preliminaries. Yeah, so if I take ECOP, every 100 kilometers we're going to be building a camp for 1,000 people. So right now we're doing some of the civil engineering works and this and the other. But in a year's time, there'll be 1,000 people in the camp. And they will generate a whole ecosystem around them of what they need to do their work, to do their logistics, to do their catering, the whole security. All of that is going to be like, I think, picking up very fast over the next year. And so I would say to everyone, the opportunities are there. We're not going to hand them on a plate to people. You have to be motivated. You have to persevere. You have to come with the skills and attitude and willingness to learn. But there's like a wave of opportunities still ahead of us. So I think we're going to see, a step change in activity across the three upstream or the three oil and gas projects as we go forward in 2023. So I'm very excited about it all.
Very good, very good. Thanks. Mr. Hu.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As I mentioned, I think oil and gas industry is a fastly growth industry and is very hopeful industry. And also oil and gas industry is important to Uganda, and is also important to East Africa. And this industry is integrated industry. It's not only provided the crude oil for the country, but also, improve the growth of other sectors. So I encourage the local companies to involve in the industry, and not only to simply provide services to industry, but also to look at the requirement of the industry to try to establish the capacity of the company for the country. And I think for the local companies, they have a lot of advantages, such as it's easy to engage with the regulators, with the government and the local communities, and so on. So I think this is an advantage. And also, from Sinopec side, we need to cooperate with the local companies. Just now we mentioned about the financing, and also I think financing is a very big opportunities in the industry. So still I have the same feeling with Martin. I hope in this year and next year, I think there will be a big change about the prospect. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Philip.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So today we have, I would say, more than 160 Ugandan companies participating to the Tilenga project. And of course, we are happy and proud of that. But when it comes to more specialized services, what we have seen that the number of players reduces drastically. And whatever specialized service that you offer for tender, you always find, I would say, the same 8 to 10 players. So my wish and my objective is try to enlarge this pool of potential companies able to participate in really delivering specialized services. And of course, now we are in a race. In terms of construction, in execution, we are in a race to deliver the first oil, to see the oil flowing in 25. But in the meantime, we are preparing the operation phase, and we are putting all the building blocks and preparing all this operation phase, and there will be a lot of opportunities, and we would like to see and develop, as I said, some local champions to deliver some specialized services during this operation phase. So I really encourage all of you to come, to express your interest, to group together, and to participate to this next phase that is coming very soon. It's tomorrow. 25 is tomorrow. So let's start to be very active, as you have been active to join the construction phase. I mean, keep the same proactivity to join the operation phase. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Let me conclude. Yes. As we finish this, we conclude this high-powered panel. Let me give a few takeaways, if I may, as a chair. Speaking from Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, for example, our members are absolutely keen and anxious that they fully participate and just not remain onlookers. So I've been fortunate because you can see I've been talking to practical players. It's not just academicians in a university. These are people who have hands-on and they are talking from experience. And so I can see three things. One, I detect total commitment. I hope you agree with me. Could you give them a round of applause? Total commitment to make sure people in our region don't become onlookers, but they become part and parcel of the oil and gas sector at every stage. That's number one. Number two, that it takes effort, i.e., to develop specialized skills or to be skilled in supplying a certain service in this sector. It is not going to take a lazy person. It is incumbent upon us, our people, to make a deliberate effort. That is number two that I pick. Third, whether it is a combination of government and even oil companies and all of us, how do we help the local players, local suppliers, really access financing? It remains a challenge, and that's why I was saying, perhaps when oil begins flowing, we may even think of having a small fund injected so that these fellows can be helped, because our traditional banks can be a little bit too rigid for our comfort, if I may say so. Fourth, the power of partnership and collaboration, I thought is important that I picked up. That yes, you can single-handedly deliver your goods and services, but it's becoming obvious because of the specialized nature that you find in oil and gas, that if you can collaborate, if you can have relevant partnerships, you'll be stronger, you'll get synergies, and be able to deliver what is expected from private sector. Lastly, that we must remind ourselves that much as we want to play part in the oil and gas sector, you require discipline and high standards. I think it is very obvious. Everybody is saying not everyone can play part. Unless you are disciplined and prepared, you just will not take part. So let me conclude by asking you to give another last round of applause to our distinguished panelists for a wonderful, wonderful morning presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Sir Rich. Another round of applause for Sir Rich. Sir Rich has really extracted the juice out of this amazing panel. I was seated next to my brother Bob, and Bob was saying, those are tricky questions. Those are hard questions. I don't know if they're going to be answered. And I guess they were answered too in a very satisfactory manner. Now, we're just going to go into a break. But before we break off from this panel, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Energy, Honorable Peter Lokeris, to just say a word or two, and then, of course, have you here with him for a photo op, and then we go into our break. Honorable Minister.
Sir Rich and your panel of panelists, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. This gentleman here, very vibrant speaker, is called Sir Rich. He got this name long ago. He's been a minister, he has been everything else, a businessman and a miner. That's why he's talking very well about what he's obtaining on the ground. So I'm very, very happy that you are the one leading this distinguished panel. Ladies and gentlemen, these people are talking about finances and how they get involved in the oil industry. First, what the jurisdiction do is to make laws, enabling laws to allow businesses to come, good laws to attract investors in the country. What we did was that exactly. We said, first of all, the laws should be there. And in these laws, you can go join the industry either by yourself, that is independent player, or you can enter together with the government in the public-private partnership, or yourselves form yourselves into partners. You are all accepted when you come in that way. That's why we have joint partners. The ones now who are really active in our industry, whom I need to commend and thank them, is Total Energies and Sinok, Uganda Limited. They are doing a commendable job. Even those who farmed out brought them in. And these ones have continued with us. In spite of what everybody says, that we are transiting from fossil fuels. How soon shall we do that? It remains unanswered. We are moving, and in the world, they call it just energy transition. You move slowly, you don't just cut off and say we are moving. If you did that now, you will never move. How will you make your planes, which you use for coming here, to fly as of now? It is not easy. So for you companies who have dared being with us, we are very grateful to you. You have accepted to delve in, to go into our legislation. We said, well, since you have come in, the asset is of government and of these people, can you please to do some businesses in this business you have, so that we share the invested resource? They have agreed. I want to commend them that when we said training, they have taken and sponsored our boys and girls to go to their countries to study. Very many have come out as engineers, and they are working now with them, in the hope that in future there will be what we call knowledge transfer to these people. And they have accepted, and we have made the legislation favorable to them. We work together. Certain, when we were saying that is it good to ring fence somewhere, that's what we did. They lower jobs so that we are sure the people are there and they become part of the industry and they begin owning the industry, protecting it. You don't have to provide policemen to look after these companies and industry. The people are already there. If you go to disturb them, you will have disturbed those locals. Because in the areas where they operate, they buy cabbage, they buy what? We have asked them, you provide the seeds of those, the seedlings of the things you eat, the vegetables you eat, you give us. This place is very good, it can grow anything. And if you go to the west, where Bunyoro, everybody is busy. Oima town has become very big. It will be as big as Kampala very soon, if you are not aware. So that's why we say, when you attract investments, you give people the conducive environment, the people feel at home. Of course, they bring their money. They bring a lot of money. And when people see, the lenders see, they are operating in a friendly country, providing enough security for them, and they are happy, then those are also enticed to come and give their money, because they know the risks are very few. So to us, we are very happy in this industry with our companies here, and I'm sure many will come. Even now, tomorrow or next, we shall be signing some of the PSAs, production sharing agreements, with others. They are still coming. First of all, where will you get the tar for roads? Very soon. Will you have substituted with a clean energy to put on those roads mixed with the stones we have, the granites? It may not be soon. So for us, I am desirous that if we had started producing oil by now, we would be very rich. Because when they are still transitioning, and at the same time with this confusion in the world, we would have taken advantage. So I call upon you to bring the money, and we move very fast so that we catch up with time. This is what I need to tell you. Sir Rich, I am very happy. I don't need to continue talking here because the expatriates here, you have talked very well, but I want to thank you for having taken our students abroad, and they have come back and they are working with you. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable. I think if you could stand here with the panel so we can have the pictures taken. And as that is being done, we're just going to break off for 30 minutes. When we return, we're going to be in this room having a panel that's going to be discussing oil and gas financing. This panel will be moderated by Deloitte, United Republic of Tanzania. So in this room, Victoria Ballroom, we'll be having oil and gas financing. Now, for any of the panels that you're seeing in Nile Hall, it won't be Nile Hall, it will be Katonga Hall. So in Katonga Hall, we're going to have licensing regimes for oil and gas, and this will be moderated by Mr. Hani Malinga. And in Addis Hall, we will have local content, focusing on empowering the East African oil and gas players. This will be moderated by Mwendia Nyaga. And in Choga Hall, the final hall, we'll be having a topic which will be best practice exploration in sedimentary basins. And this will be moderated by Joski Kisali. All of these will only happen for 45 minutes, and we'll have a switch to the final panels for the day. So 30 minutes, and we'll be back here to continue with the next panel. Thank you.
My name is Vero Irotijudis. I'm from Kasenyi village. I was affected in RAP 1. The Total Energy give support to me with the 10 beehives. And before the project came, I was also a beekeeper. But I have the last beehive, around like 20. Total Energy added me 10. Then after 2 seasons, I also had 10. After some season, I add more beehive. Like now I'm talking, I have 60 plus beehive in the site. The project have changed my life, increasing more money in my life. Out of that money.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 2 of the East African Petroleum Conference and Exhibition.
How regulators and national oil companies can use their functions to achieve this transformation in petroleum-rich countries.
We regulate to ensure that the players are playing in accordance with the legislation.
The regulator comes in to ensure that the standards that have been depicted in the laws are observed by both the service providers and the consumers.
As the regulators, we have to first build our capacity.
Our 2010 Constitution guiding us, we have the Environmental Management and Condition Act, we have the National Environment Policy.
Without our environment, people, our health, our social aspects, without environment.
We must have improved our infrastructure.
We need to look at our energy mix and go towards the energy mix that is going to give us a lower effect on our environment.
The land acquisition and compensation process is considered one of the highest, and these are the things that we need to do as we go and secure financing.
The oil and gas subsector needs to hold itself to the high standards to uphold sustainable waste management.
Let's progress. We need to change the perspective on the African continent. You can no longer be defined how you should utilize your energy resources.
Let's go push for energy. And that's why I'm not ashamed of it when I say drill, baby, drill. You go out there and drill more wells and we'll do well.
The construction sequence. The survey crew carefully surveys and stakes the right-of-way. Grading is conducted to provide a level surface for construction crews. Topsoil is stockpiled on the right-of-way boundary. A wheel ditcher or backhoe is utilized to form the trench. Stringing ensures that each piece of pipe is positioned accurately for the next phase. If needed, the pipe will be bent to accommodate elevation or horizontal changes. The welding crew weld each section of pipe together into one continuous length. The survey crew records data regarding the length of the assembled pipeline. For quality control, technicians inspect the welds using non-destructive testing. Each joint is coated by a coating head and then inspected. Installation of electric heat traced and fiber optic cables. The side booms move together to ease the pipe into the trench. The pipe trench is backfilled utilizing pad fill and overburden. Hydro testing ensures pipe integrity and that it is fit for service. The pipe trench and the associated land within the construction zone are contoured and revegetated. The restoration leaves a typical operational right-of-way.
Buhuka gravity water flow scheme flow since it has a reservoir at the escarpment where water flows through to the communities, the 5 villages, that is Kinacha, Basambu, Nsonga and Nsunzu, by gravity flow. There was an existing system, but having it there at top of the escarpment comes with its challenges, that the speed of water at that point is high. So the effectiveness of the treatment system is not really effective, that now over time the water is turbid that goes to the community, so we get complaints of diseases, dysentery, also there are issues with cholera.
We had a project scope
mainly to design, construct, and do rehabilitation. We've put up tanks, we've put up an intake point, we have the aerator, we have sedimentation, we have the clear water tank, we have put up a pump or guard house, and then we have a reservoir.
So this project comes in as an impact mitigation project, and it is funded by Sinok Uganda Limited, which contracted a local company called Samka Construction Limited, and they have put up a new system which now
sequence. The survey crew carefully surveys and stakes the right-of-way. Grading is conducted to provide a level surface for construction crews. Topsoil is stockpiled on the right-of-way boundary. A wheel ditcher or backhoe is utilized to form the trench. Stringing ensures that each piece of pipe is positioned accurately for the next phase. If needed, the pipe will be bent to accommodate elevation or horizontal changes. The welding crew weld each section of pipe together into one continuous length. The survey crew records data regarding the length of the assembled pipeline. For quality control, technicians inspect the welds using non-destructive testing. Each joint is coated by a coating head and then inspected. Installation of electric heat traced and fiber optic cables. The side booms move together to ease the pipe into the trench. The pipe trench is backfilled utilizing pad fill and overburden. Hydro testing ensures pipe integrity and that it is fit for service. The pipe trench and the associated land within the construction zone are contoured and revegetated. The restoration leaves a typical operational right-of-way.
Buhuka Gravity Water Flow Scheme, it gets its name Gravity Flow since it has a reservoir at the escarpment where water flows through to the communities, the 5 villages, that is Kinacha, Basambu, Songa and Nsunzu, by gravity flow. There was an existing system, but having it there at top of the escarpment comes with its challenges, that the speed of water at that point is high. So the effectiveness of the treatment system is not really effective, that now over time the water is turbid that goes to the community, so we get complaints of diseases, dysentery, also there are issues with cholera.
We had a project scope mainly to design, construct, and do rehabilitation. We've put up tanks, we've put up an intake point, we have the aerator, we have sedimentation, we have the clear water tank, we have put up a pump or guard house, and then we have a reservoir.
So this project comes in as an impact mitigation project, and it is funded by Sinok Uganda Limited, which contracted a local company called Samka Construction Limited, and they have put up a new system which now has several advantages, where water is collected and the speeds of the water is controlled, so it can go through the conventional treatment method. So at the moment, the villages are getting clean water.
Samuka ugamulungu ba leaders ba LOC1 ba LOC2 karachelo ku district magibedi meeting kadonge kwayo nya project ma eni miro juponja wiya mamaka keni mu I village makakeni ungoni I board bi marukelo expense kadonge kelo nying ma eno matongtong gam gwacho mento jukela wi adek ni village mayono matong majulong wa luonga ni bino ni training one ni ponjo wa kitemi kuro kopi eni kitema kana nyo terek mochopo tiyo kudene na nyedo kakare macho.
Initially, the community was getting this kind of water. So when we came up, we then constructed the water treatment system. And over time, we've been trying to improve this water. Right now, when you go to the communities, this is the water that they are getting from the taps.
Well, this project was designed to last 25 years. In the year that I'm speaking in, that is 2022, the population is 7,000 approximately. And in the 25th year, we expect this system to still serve around 14,000, double this population.
Ofoyo sana gimutimo mukelo kopi I village mwa kauna wiya moden wanganyonga na kagibe tor kuni yeyo nam ukudi marach ube monde kom gido nam ento kawoni onwango do nganyonga area ma eni piny marach wabe neno go pide waneno bino matar kofoyo wakesha ni kumbera mutimo wa ma eni.
A rig is a group of equipment that we assemble, we test, and then we commission or operationalize to help us dig the wells, have them under control, have them completed, and get them ready for the production phase to start.
We have built capacity to handle equipment from the ship up to the last mile in the Kingfisher. We start from having a CFS in Mombasa, a fully-fledged office in the port. We have an ICD in Uganda here to do all customs clearance and handling. Then we have a handling yard that has all the equipment before you reach Kingfisher, which we are currently using in executing the COSU contract. That's the point where trucks arrive, checked, drivers have a rest, take a shower, and we check their readiness to go down the escarpment. And after delivery, because of congestion, they still have to turn back and spend the night in our facility in Hoima.
So the rig move, which is the job that we've done as DDG First, has involved over 600 people at different places, from offloading in the port to handling the documentation, driving, offloading in the Kingfisher. In terms of truckloads, we have done about 250 trips, moving 1,800 kilometers from the port of Mombasa to Kingfisher. That's how complex it is. And of course, we've been supported. Sinok has been on our side, COSU has been on our side, and the Uganda police has been a very, very important partner in this project. The convoys have been in the range of 15 to 20 trucks, each convoy, setting off at the port of Mombasa, driving all the way from Mombasa to Malaba in about 3 days. Then they would come from Malaba to Mukono, spend the night. Then early morning, we would set off from Mukono to Hoima. And then early in the morning, the following day, we would go to Kingfisher.
Naso kana avuga kumoroka entonto nedo fuso magulu 10 do sino twake do 12 do tipa akati twera nyimaze mu myaka giri musanvu kale olugendo lwo luliro obwire bungi kubanga moroka muri mu edita tambula muri mu bino bi Ukraine tambula mpola ndo atidi tambula nga dolo muri nokola ki musururu moja muri nokudi kuma muri magunonze basobora okuzimba mu enumba wewa nganka yenda neyongera kukwera nzimbe yokwe yindi ku kibuga ayenga asobola okuzimba mu enumba mu kyalo.
250 loads had to be offloaded in Kingfisher using these mobile cranes, using forklifts, and These were all operated and driven by Ugandan professional personnel, operators, riggers, banksmen, and slingers.
On this well pad is where all the equipment is going to be hosted, and all the drilling and drilling service tools are going to be hosted on this platform. For this well pad, it's very important because it gave us the way of drilling without so much going into the lake. And so it has helped us to be able to mobilize and to handle the drilling project without having to interrupt with the ecosystem in the lake.
This was an opportunity for us to deploy our capacity and confirm to everybody that we Ugandans, we are able. We were offloading 20 truckloads every day safely. We have employed Ugandans, so that's a good way of appreciating and saying, yes, it is possible that we Ugandans, we can be involved in this oil and gas, and we perform excellently.
Every day, over 15 million members are transforming Africa.
Growing is natural. It's something that defines our journey. It's that first step. It's the next sunrise. The desire to achieve more. It's the joy to see things grow and keeps your eyes on tomorrow. As this great nation grows, we believe that we can grow together. Grow your ambitions. Grow larger. Grow higher. Grow together. Equity.
In March 2018, Total Energies launched the Welders Training and Certification Program aimed at improving the employability of Ugandans from the Albertine region and East African crude oil pipeline areas.
GIZ E4D project is working with Total Energies, where we are targeting to train at the end of it 350 welders, and we're expected to train more.
I see myself working maybe in the oil and gas industry, being an international certified welder. Of course, I'll have acquired the skills.
I'm a lady, but doing something which is generally perceived to be for men. It makes you actually feel special. It makes you feel wow.
I am ready to support the oil and gas sector by being a quality welder. I thank you, Total, and I thank the government of Uganda.
Total Energies EP Uganda is committed to the empowerment of Ugandans to take an active part in the overall development of the oil project in Uganda.
Sinoko yatuma living earth okutwala abaana ababayitibwa mu pipelines
kati netufunayo ogwomukisa ne tujja wano ku Nile vocation. Nze ndi mu bya hairdressing.
They brought us course list. There were very many course lists, but for me, I chose my own choice course. So I came here for basically mechanics and driving.
SINOC this time gave us 100 students, and they are here for 6 months. And of which, in those 6 months, they will do assessment, graduate, we hand over the certificate to them. So we are training 100 students apparently in almost these courses. We have welding and metal fabrication. We have motor vehicle and driving. We have driving alone. We have motorcycle repair. We have building construction. We have hairdressing and cosmetology. We have tailoring. Then we have catering. We have those that run through this 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and 2 years. And every level is assessed by DIT, that is the Directorate of Industrial Training, and UBTEP, that is Uganda Business Technical Examination Board.
Kuruga tujja tumaziro hano ka myezi 2 bingi bitwegere tukoze madirisa nyigi na joints.
Topo mpikire hano bafuna madama okutwegesa sofa twakwega onke ebintu bitano aho no okukora nka obuteteyi, tight skirts, round skirts, shirts, gathered dresses, nebindi bijja kusanga gandi bijja nitwega.
I came total when I didn't know anything. So I came here. They gave us topics. Most of topics we have covered. So right now, I can change engine oil, remove tires, plus driving. I can drive very well.
Ato kurora nti abesike kaito nitwe kizibu muno nito sanga ntibonabona muno munsi yona. Hati nyo baresere program enu tukusanga twagiramo omugisa kaito baremero kusoma habwe bizibu bya school fees na abazairo butesobora. Na ege program obyayizire twakora kimu twapuraninga kwija twayetekanisa kwija baitu ngira nti batuyambire ebizibu bingi gamanto butuku ikara mu ombyaro nhoje kusanga harimu kuswero takayikire harimu kutwarenda harino kwikara nti ntujja streets harino kusanga nti turemerwa muka tuwaja kwenjera nka gamanka hanyanja gamba ki ebintu bitakutwikaza turi muka.
Abavubuka tuli bangi mu byalo eyo gye tuva. Abamu tebalina byakola. Abaana abalala usanga batambula amagala nga tebalina kyakola. Naye singa tuba tufunyeeyo nga bizinesi emwe dakikati nga salon bagenda kukunganyayo kwa abawala nga 10 babaleete bayige nabo bafunemu ekyokukola. So ekyo nakyo singa kiba kizze kiba kisobola otuyamba naffe okwekuumiramu ekyo enkya ne tuba abantu ab'omugaso.
When I graduate, I want to work in big companies like SINOC, Uganda.
Maze kale kufuna ka certificate kusaa kuba ningenda buni ninkola mu company yona ba industry buni ninkungura workshop yange.
Bwire buno nambere nkukora nyo bunyayizire nya decidinga kujja mu tailoring. Obunya decidingire kujja mu tailoring bwire buno ni hondi. Obutukuruga hanu kusoma. Yanyi na aim yange. Yokugira nti ndaruga hanu nyetandikiseho tinkwenda bantandikireho.
Kati bwe nabanvudde wano kubanga batugamba emyezi 3. Kati bwe nabanga nvudde wano ndina okugendako ku salons endala kubanga womba sirina capital. Banina okubeerayo nga bwentegeke waka abazadde bange nga banfunirayoko ekyokukola nange nga ndi eri nga neeyongeramu ku biki bye simanyi.
So we do take these students after studying, we link up or we link them with some companies, we link them with workshops. And a good example, like this year, we did an assessment. It was in January, early January, and almost half of the students got jobs while they were still studying here. Because of what, we could send them to the garages, we send them to the workshop, these welding workshops, we send them to those people who are building, they be on sites. So students could be retained from there. For now, we are selected among the institute to provide a database for the oil and gas jobs. And we had to submit the database of students, of all the students who were trained from the day this institute started up to the present. We also take our trainers where when there is an opportunity in like training in 3G, that is welding, 3G to 4G up to 6. We do take them. We coordinate with the UPIC, that is Uganda Petroleum Institute, Chigumba. Then with Thunmaker, we take our students there. They do what we call international certifications, and after they come back here.
Nga hairdressing si kyangu nnyo okufunayoko ku mukisa, naye abalenzi balina chances nnyingi. Zikye mbadde nsaba nga bwe ndi wa hairdressing sobola okufunayo omukisa kw'omuntu n'akwatako ku mukono n'anyongerako ku ekyo kye njize nange ne nvaayoko ng'abalala.
We wish that after this first, I can call it a first slot with SINOC, I wish that we get another slot because we are having the opportunity in oil and gas and mostly in Albertan region, but we are not having people to work in oil and gas. We were asked about because they want 20,000 workers, but we couldn't raise even 1,000. Reason, the training wasn't like, people did not engage in trainings, people who were competent, they were not there. So we could like get other people to fill those gaps. So I wish if we use SINO in order to create awareness and we give skills to these students.
Vamos a hacer lo mejor para hacerlo posible.
新年快乐，猪年吉祥。
The Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum is a not-for-profit member-based organization that was founded in March 2010. The Chamber's purpose is to be the coordinating and facilitating center for information and administrative support to prospective and current investors in the mining and petroleum sectors in Uganda. It represents companies with active interest in the mining and petroleum sectors while promoting, encouraging, protecting, and fostering responsible exploration in these sectors. Its primary goal is to create value for all stakeholders. The Chamber advocates for a beneficial business environment, creation of synergies and partnerships, information dissemination, and capacity enhancement for effective national content promotion. Membership in the Chamber is open to all players across the entire value chains of mining and petroleum. National content is our flagship, and at UCMP, we believe that together we can achieve more. To register, info@ucmp.ug or call +256 393 516 695. Uganda is full of many treasures, but there is one that connects us all, that helps us grow and develop together to more wealth creation, better infrastructure, and better service delivery. That's why UNOC, the Uganda National Oil Company, is here to manage the commercial aspect of the petroleum sector on behalf of the state. UNOC, your partner in Uganda.
It's a language, the language of progress. We're Ugandans building Uganda with Ugandans, skilling Ugandans and developing competencies required in the oil and gas sector, partnering with Ugandan businesses to achieve greatness. We're here to build because at the end of the day, we're truly Ugandan.
Has undertaken a ensuring that Ugandan entities and citizens are adequately equipped to participate in the oil and gas sector.
Yeah, we do manufacture and supply personal protective equipment. We supply beyond Total Energies. We supply their subcontractors. Yeah, we have seen our company transform from a trading company to a manufacturing entity. We are able to set up some of these facilities that we are enjoying right now. And these facilities also are supporting other sub-sectors So they have no idea what oil and gas is, but the items they are using are a result of oil and gas. Overall, the industry, manufacturers, suppliers, traders will all enjoy.
Total Energies EP Uganda is committed to the empowerment of Ugandans to take an active part in the overall development of the oil project in Uganda. Total Energies has undertaken a number of initiatives aimed at ensuring that Ugandan entities and citizens to participate in the oil and gas sector.
We have currently secured contracts with Total Energies and McDermott in excess of $3.5 million. Total Energies has assisted us in our capacity building in the bidding process, understanding the national content requirement through various workshops that we have participated in, and also connecting.
The Gas Moment, brought to you by Petroleum Authority of Uganda, creating lasting value in Uganda's oil journey. The land take for the development 6,900 acres, with close to 10,000 project-affected persons. The compensation process involves an intensive resettlement action plan study that provides for the cash payment, physical resettlement, and livelihood restoration for the affected persons.
Family yanje bari ebintu byenyene byona sente izindi ikindi banyumbakira henju irudenje lyo mazina ganye ndanyangura n'ijune yanje sinzi nezo zo mulembe munongo anozireba baba byarira pasparum compound
chigavisika bine jongengeleke mate shonke ubatuletire kono batweri nyumba gikoto gavisika bitano kizibu kyakulala na kyaku bintu bende kiliki ayi munyumba yetu batu amezi batu ugudo wakole batro magulu getu gazigina kwa yansi tuna to inakinaviro byo kuditwale kwa inavyo.
For more information, visit www.pau.go.ug. Petroleum Authority of Uganda, creating lasting value in Uganda's oil journey.
Known as a top-tier safari destination, Tanzania boasts of one of East and Central Africa's most robust economies. The country is making deliberate strides to establish its place not just in tourism, but in business. Nowhere is it flexing its economic muscle more than in developing its largest port, the port of Dar es Salaam. The port of Dar es Salaam, the principal port of Tanzania, handling about 95% of the country's international trade, is also the fourth largest port on the African continent's Indian Ocean coastline, strategically connecting neighboring land-linked countries of Malawi, Zambia, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and parts of eastern DRC to the Middle and Far East, Europe, Australia, and America. The government of Tanzania, with support from global partners, continues to work unrelentingly to make the port of Dar es Salaam a harbour so efficient that it becomes the route of choice for East, Central and Southern Africa. We are investing heavily in size, speed and smart technology. Expansion in size and capacity has been the key element of focus over the last 10 years. Initially designed with a total quay or landing length of 2,600 meters, 11 deep water berths, and the ability to handle 13 million tons of cargo a year, Tanzania embarked on the Dar es Salaam Maritime Gateway project focused on expanding the capacity of the port to handle at least 30 million tons a year by 2030. The details of the infrastructural expansion include strengthening and deepening of the existing berths 1 to 11. This immediately increased and has availed more berthing space and in turn curbed long queues. In addition to reducing queues, the deepening of berths 1 to 7 has enabled the port to comfortably receive mega ships or Panamax vessels whose capacity is between 6,000 to 8,000 20-foot equivalent units, compared to the 2,000 20-foot equivalent units, which is the capacity of standard ships. Beyond expanding what already exists, car importers and dealers have benefited from the construction of the roll-on, roll-off terminal, which is dedicated to offloading vehicles and movable equipment. It also has a 9-hectare yard where 6,000 cars can be stored at a time. With the construction of the 1,554-kilometer crude oil export pipeline from Hoima, Uganda to Chongeleani in Tanga already underway, the port's importance in Africa will only grow. To provide one of the fastest and most efficient clearing and forwarding experiences of any port in Africa, the Port of Dar es Salaam set up the one-stop center housed in a 36-story building, designed to bring every single entity involved in the import.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are now ready, I guess, for the next session. In this room, I'll repeat this, we are going to be discussing oil and gas financing. Now, for anyone who's interested in any of the other sessions, I'll just mention them for clarity. We have a session in Katonga on licensing regimes for oil and gas. And then we have in Addis Hall, empowering the East African oil and gas players. This is focusing on local content. And in Choga Hall, we will have best practice exploration in sedimentary basins, and this will be in Choga Hall. So if you're here, I believe you're in the right room if you're focusing or planning to listen in on oil and gas financing. So I will invite the moderator, Deloitte, Republic of Tanzania. Representative from Deloitte, Republic of Tanzania. And the moderator will go on to invite the panel.
Welcome to a couple of reasons.